What if the most dangerous secrets weren't stolen by spies or leaked by whistleblowers? What if they were simply released by accident? A misplaced document, a database error, a bureaucratic oversight. And suddenly, information that was supposed to stay buried forever becomes public knowledge. The government calls them mistakes. But these weren't innocent errors. These were catastrophic security breaches that exposed truths powerful people never wanted revealed. Documents that proved conspiracies were real. Files that confirmed suspicions held for decades. Evidence that shattered official narratives. Once these files hit public record, there was no taking them back. Some were scrubbed from the internet within hours. Others were dismissed as forgeries. A few sparked investigations that went nowhere. But the information survived, copied, archived, analyzed by researchers who recognized what they were seeing. Today, we're examining 10 classified government files that were accidentally released to the public. Files that exposed secret programs, revealed hidden experiments, confirmed cover-ups. Each case follows the same pattern. Someone makes a mistake, sensitive documents go public, damage control begins immediately, but the truth was already out there. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented government files that prove the conspiracies were real. Fair warning, what you're about to hear contradicts official narratives maintained for decades. But the evidence speaks for itself. Number 1 involves a database that should never have been made public. In January of 2018, a researcher made a routine Freedom of Information Act request. She was studying Cold War-era defense contracts. Standard academic research. Nothing controversial. Nothing classified. The National Security Archive processed her request. They uploaded the documents to their public database. But someone made a critical error. They uploaded the wrong files. Instead of declassified contract summaries, they released an entire classified database. Over 40,000 documents. Files dating back to the 1950s. Operational details. Program names. Budget allocations. And buried in those 40,000 files was confirmation of something the government denied for 60 years. Project MKUltra wasn't just about LSD experiments. The scope was far larger than officially acknowledged. The files revealed sub-programs that never appeared in congressional testimony. Experiments conducted at over 80 institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons, military bases. One file detailed experiments at a psychiatric hospital in Montreal. Doctors deliberately erasing memories, trying to rebuild personalities from scratch. Another described testing on unwitting subjects in San Francisco, dosing citizens with hallucinogens in public spaces. A third outlined experiments on prisoners, subjecting them to sensory deprivation for weeks. The official story claimed MKUltra ended in 1973. These files showed programs continuing into the 1980s under different names. Project MK Search, Project MK Naomi, Project Often. Same objectives, same methods, new classifications. Within 6 hours of the upload, researchers noticed the error. They started downloading everything. By the time the NSA realized their mistake, the files had been copied thousands of times. They scrubbed the database, issued a statement about an administrative error, but the evidence was already archived on servers worldwide. Congressional hearings in the 70s revealed some MKUltra activities, but those hearings were based on incomplete information. Most files had been destroyed on orders from CIA Director Richard Helms. These accidentally released documents filled in the gaps. They showed the true scale, the real brutality, the complete disregard for consent and human rights. Victims who'd been dismissed as conspiracy theorists suddenly had documentation proving their claims. The government never acknowledged the release. No apology. No investigation into who uploaded classified files to a public database. Just silence. But the files remain. Proof that the conspiracy was larger than anyone imagined. And proof that the only reason we know is because someone made a mistake. Number 2 takes us to the Pentagon in 2017. A routine audit discovered something troubling. Billions of dollars in defense spending couldn't be accounted for. This wasn't news. The Pentagon fails audits regularly, but this audit was different. Someone accidentally attached the wrong spreadsheet to the public report. A classified budget document, marked Top Secret. It detailed black budget programs, operations with no public oversight, facilities that officially don't exist. The document was online for 14 minutes before someone caught the error. But 14 minutes was enough. The spreadsheet revealed a program called AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. $22 million allocated annually, running from 2007 to 2012. Its purpose? Investigating unidentified aerial phenomena, the government studying UFOs. Despite decades of denying any interest in the subject, the program operated in secret. No congressional oversight, no public acknowledgement. It was run by military intelligence official Luis Elizondo, based in the Pentagon. The spreadsheet showed where the money went: defense contractors studying unusual materials, scientists analyzing encounter reports, researchers investigating cases where military pilots encountered objects defying known physics, objects accelerating instantly, making impossible turns, disappearing and reappearing. The spreadsheet included references to other documents, classified reports about specific incidents. One mentioned an encounter off the coast of San Diego in 2004. The famous Nimitz incident. Navy pilots tracked an object on radar. Pilots tried to intercept. It outmaneuvered their F-18 seconds effortlessly. The official explanation? Weather phenomena, equipment malfunction. But this budget document confirmed the Pentagon took it seriously enough to fund a dedicated investigation program. After the accidental release, the Pentagon went into damage control. They confirmed AATIP existed, but claimed it ended in 2012. They said it was a minor research program, nothing significant. But the budget numbers told a different story. $22 million annually isn't minor. And insiders revealed the program didn't end. It just went deeper into classification. Renamed, restructured, still running. The accidentally released spreadsheet proved what researchers suspected for years. The government takes UFOs seriously. They investigate encounters. They study the technology. They just don't want the public to know about it. The spreadsheet disappeared from government servers within an hour, but copies circulated among researchers, journalists, congressional staffers. Eventually, the story broke publicly. The New York Times confirmed the program's existence, but only because that accidental 14-minute release provided undeniable documentation. Without that mistake, AATIP would still be completely unknown. Number 3 happened in 2011. The FBI was digitizing old case files, converting paper records to electronic format, standard procedure for modernizing their archives. But during the digitization process, someone uploaded files to the wrong server. Instead of the FBI's internal secure network, thousands of files went to a public-facing database. Most were mundane, closed investigations, declassified reports. But buried in the upload was a file that should have stayed sealed forever. COINTELPRO documents, dated 1971. COINTELPRO was the FBI's counterintelligence program, supposedly ended in 1971 after public exposure. The program targeted civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, political dissidents. The FBI infiltrated organizations, spread false information, sabotaged legitimate political movements. What the public knew about COINTELPRO came from stolen documents. Activists broke into an FBI office in 1971. They leaked files to newspapers. The scandal forced the program's termination, or so the official story claimed. These accidentally released documents told a different story. They showed COINTELPRO didn't end. It evolved. Different name, same tactics. Files detailed operations against environmental activists in the 1980s, infiltrating Greenpeace, monitoring Earth First organizers. Other documents described surveillance of anti-nuclear groups, recording conversations, building files on protesters. One memo outlined a strategy for disrupting a peaceful demonstration, using undercover agents to provoke violence, making protesters look dangerous, justifying harsh police response. Another file revealed cooperation with local police departments, sharing intelligence, coordinating operations against activist groups. The documents showed a pattern. Any political movement that challenged government policy faced systematic harassment. It didn't matter if groups were nonviolent. If they opposed military spending or questioned foreign policy, they were targets. The files included names, agents who participated, supervisors who approved operations. Some were still working in federal law enforcement. Some had become directors of other agencies. The accidentally released documents stayed online for 2 days before anyone noticed. Researchers downloaded everything. Civil rights organizations studied the files. Journalists began investigations. The FBI claimed the release was a technical error. They insisted the documents were outdated. They said modern FBI operations respect civil liberties. But the files showed operations continuing into the 2000s. Surveillance of Muslim communities after 9/11. Infiltration of anti-war groups during the Iraq War. Same methods. Same disregard for constitutional rights. The accidental release proved COINTELPRO never really ended. The tactics just went underground, became more sophisticated, harder to expose. But for 2 days, the truth was available to anyone who knew where to look. And thousands made sure that evidence would never disappear again. Number 4 involves the CIA and a catastrophic website error. In March of 2016, the CIA launched a new public website. They were rebranding, trying to seem more transparent and modern. The new site included a reading room, declassified documents available for public review. But when the site went live, something went wrong with the access controls. Documents marked classified were accessible through the public portal. For 9 hours, anyone could download files that should have required security clearance. Most visitors didn't notice. They browsed the intended public documents. But a few researchers recognized what they were seeing. File classifications that shouldn't be public. Redactions that weren't applied. Dates that were too recent. They started downloading everything before the error was corrected. Among the accidentally accessible files were documents about Operation Northwoods. The public knew about Northwoods. It was declassified in the 90s. A rejected plan from 1962. The Pentagon proposed staging fake terrorist attacks, blaming Cuba, justifying an invasion. President Kennedy rejected the plan. It never happened. That was the official story. But these accidentally released files showed something different. While the full Northwoods plan was rejected, elements were adopted. A memo from 1963 discussed implementing modified Northwoods scenarios. Another document referenced successful deployment of Northwoods-style operations. The files didn't provide complete details. They were fragments, references to other classified documents. But they suggested the tactics proposed in Northwoods didn't die with the rejected plan. They were refined, scaled down, used in covert operations. One document mentioned an incident in 1964, an attack blamed on enemy forces, used to justify military escalation. The file strongly implied the attack was staged. Another referenced an operation in Central America during the 1980s, manufacturing a provocation to justify intervention. The documents were carefully worded, plausible deniability built into every sentence. But the implications were clear. False flag tactics weren't just proposed, they were used. The CIA closed the security hole after 9 hours. They claimed it was a configuration error during the website launch. They insisted no classified information was compromised. But researchers had already archived everything, including files the CIA insisted were never released. Congressional staffers received anonymous packages containing the downloaded documents. Journalists got copies. Freedom of information advocates published them online. The CIA couldn't put the information back in the box. They responded by claiming the documents were taken out of context. That references to operations didn't mean what they appeared to mean. But they never explained what the references actually meant. They never clarified which operations the memos discussed. just blanket denials and accusations of conspiracy theories. The accidentally released files didn't provide complete proof, but they provided smoke. And where there's this much smoke, something burned. Number 5 happened at the Department of Energy in 2013. A data analyst was preparing files for a public records request. Documents about nuclear testing in Nevada, standard declassified material, test schedules, yield reports, safety procedures. But the analyst made a critical mistake. Instead of copying files from the declassified folder, he copied from the wrong directory. He uploaded classified documents to the public server. The files stayed accessible for 3 weeks before anyone noticed. Researchers studying nuclear testing history downloaded thousands of pages. Most were duplicates of already public information, but several documents were marked restricted data, the highest classification for nuclear information. These files detailed something the government never acknowledged: radiation experiments conducted on unwitting civilians. The public knew about some Cold War radiation studies, deliberate exposure of soldiers to fallout, feeding radioactive material to mentally disabled children. Congressional hearings in the 90s exposed these programs. Victims received compensation, but these accidentally released documents revealed experiments that never came up in those hearings. One file described a program in St. Louis during the 1950s. Scientists sprayed zinc-cadmium sulfide on low-income neighborhoods, claiming it was a smokescreen test. But the file revealed the real purpose: studying how radioactive particles disperse in urban environments. The sprayed compound wasn't just zinc-cadmium sulfide. It contained radioactive isotopes. Residents were never informed, never consented, never told they were experimental subjects. Another document detailed experiments in Alaska. Native communities exposed to iodine-131. Researchers wanted to study how radiation affects people whose diet consists primarily of fish. The exposure levels were significant, enough to cause thyroid problems. The file included health data collected over decades, tracking cancer rates, documenting thyroid disease. No treatment offered, no warning given, just observation, like studying lab animals. A third file outlined experiments in Tennessee. Pregnant women given radioactive iron. Doctors told them it was a vitamin supplement. It was actually a tracer to study fetal development. The file documented birth defects, developmental problems, childhood cancers. The researchers knew the risks. They exposed the women anyway. These experiments were classified higher than atomic bomb designs because the bombs were for fighting enemies. The experiments were conducted on American citizens. The Department of Energy claimed the release was a database error. They said the files were scheduled for declassification anyway, but that wasn't true. The documents were marked, "Do not declassify without special review." Some were flagged national security exemption. They were never supposed to become public. The victims in these files were never part of official apologies, never included in compensation programs, because officially, these experiments never happened. But for 3 weeks, the evidence was downloadable. Researchers archived everything, shared it with investigative journalists, provided it to advocacy groups. The documentation couldn't be ignored. Names, dates, locations, results. Some victims were still alive. Their medical records finally explained mysterious health problems. The accidental release gave them answers the government spent 60 years hiding. Number 6 involves the NSA and a contractor's mistake. In 2015, the NSA hired a tech company to manage data storage. The company was building a cloud-based system for archiving documents. During testing, an engineer needed sample data to verify the system worked correctly. He copied files from NSA servers, millions of documents. He was supposed to copy non-sensitive test data. Instead, he copied from a classified database. Then he made it worse. He uploaded the files to a commercial cloud service to test the archival functions. Amazon Web Services, a public cloud platform. The files were technically private, stored in a password-protected account. But the engineer misconfigured the access settings. The files were searchable through standard internet queries. Anyone using the right search terms could find them. For 7 months, classified NSA documents were accessible to anyone who knew how to use Google. Security researchers discovered the breach. They immediately contacted the NSA, but they also downloaded the files, just in case they mysteriously disappeared. The documents revealed the scope of NSA surveillance programs. Not the programs Edward Snowden exposed. Different programs, more invasive. One file detailed a project called Prism 2. It wasn't just monitoring email and phone calls. It was accessing smart home devices. Any device connected to the internet. Security cameras, voice assistants, smart TVs. The NSA had developed methods to activate these devices remotely, turn on microphones without the user knowing, access camera feeds, record conversations. Another document described partnerships with tech companies, not the partnerships revealed by Snowden. New arrangements, deeper access, companies providing encryption keys, building backdoors into products, sharing user data automatically. The file included company names. Some were predictable, others were surprising. Companies that publicly advocated for privacy, that fought government surveillance requests in court, but privately, they were cooperating fully. A third document outlined a program monitoring financial transactions. Every credit card purchase, every bank transfer, every cryptocurrency transaction, building profiles of spending habits, identifying patterns, flagging unusual activity, not just for suspected terrorists, for everyone. The file explained the purpose, creating a comprehensive database of American consumer behavior, useful for identifying threats, but also useful for economic forecasting, market manipulation, political leverage. When the breach was discovered, the NSA moved quickly. They had Amazon remove the files. They classified the incident itself. They investigated the contractor, revoked his clearance, prosecuted him for mishandling classified information. But they never acknowledged what was in the files. They claimed the documents were outdated, no longer reflected current operations. But dates in the files contradicted that claim. Programs described as active and ongoing. The accidentally released documents confirmed what privacy advocates warned about for years. Surveillance wasn't limited to terrorists or criminals. Everyone was monitored. Every device was a potential spy. Every transaction was recorded. The accidental release proved the extent of the surveillance state, and proved the NSA's public statements about privacy protections were meaningless. Number 7 happened in 2019 at the State Department. A FOIA officer was processing requests for diplomatic cables, routine declassification work. She was supposed to release cables from the 1970s, historical documents, nothing sensitive. But she accidentally uploaded cables from 2011, recent, still classified, full of sensitive diplomatic information. The files were on the public FOIA website for 18 hours. Most people searching the State Department archives weren't looking for recent documents, but a few researchers noticed files with wrong dates. They started investigating. What they found exposed secret American involvement in the Arab Spring. The official story was straightforward. The Arab Spring was organic. Citizens rising against dictators. The United States supported democracy movements, but didn't orchestrate them. These accidentally released cables told a different story. They showed years of preparation, American diplomats cultivating opposition groups, providing training, offering funding. One cable from 2008 discussed supporting activists in Egypt, identifying potential leaders, teaching them organizing tactics, helping them build networks. The cable was clear about objectives: destabilizing Mubarak's government, replacing him with someone more favorable to American interests. Another cable detailed operations in Libya, supporting rebel groups, providing intelligence, coordinating with NATO allies. The cable described plans for post-Gaddafi Libya, which companies would get reconstruction contracts, how oil resources would be managed. This was written in 2010, a year before the uprising began. A third cable discussed Syria, similar strategies, identifying opposition groups, providing support. But this cable included something disturbing: contingency plans if the opposition couldn't win quickly, escalation options, military intervention, regime change by force. The cable showed the Arab Spring wasn't entirely spontaneous. Some uprisings were genuine, but American intelligence agencies shaped the outcomes, determined which groups received support, which leaders emerged, which governments fell. The cables included assessments of how protests would spread, economic instability that would trigger unrest. These weren't predictions, they were plans. When the State Department discovered the error, they removed the files immediately. They contacted journalists who downloaded the cables, asked them not to publish. Most complied, but WikiLeaks published the entire cache. The State Department claimed the cables were taken out of context, that supporting democracy movements wasn't the same as orchestrating revolutions, but the cables used words like destabilize and regime change. They discussed manipulating economic conditions to create unrest. They outlined strategies for controlling post-revolution governments. This went beyond supporting freedom. This was engineering political outcomes. The accidentally released cables revealed how American foreign policy really works. Not spreading democracy, replacing unfriendly governments with friendly ones, using protesters as tools, manipulating legitimate grievances for geopolitical advantage. The documents contradicted every public statement about respecting sovereignty and self-determination. They showed a pattern of interference, covert manipulation, calculated regime change. And the only reason anyone knows is because someone uploaded the wrong decade of cables. Number 8 takes us to the FDA in 2014. The agency was updating their public database of drug trials, adding new studies, removing outdated entries. During the update, a programmer accidentally changed access permissions. Restricted sections became publicly viewable. For 48 hours, anyone could access internal FDA reviews, documents never meant for public release. These files contained information pharmaceutical companies desperately wanted hidden. Drug trial data that never appeared in published studies. Adverse effects that weren't reported. One file detailed trials for a popular antidepressant. The published studies showed the drug was safe and effective. But the FDA's internal review told a different story. The drug performed barely better than placebo. The difference was statistically insignificant. Worse, trial data showed increased suicide risk in patients under 25. The pharmaceutical company submitted those results to the FDA, required by law, but when they published the trial results in medical journals, that data disappeared. They only published the favorable outcomes, buried the problematic findings. The FDA knew. Their internal review documented the discrepancies. But they approved the drug anyway, with a minor warning label that doctors largely ignored. Another file revealed safety issues with a diabetes medication. Trials showed increased risk of heart attacks, significant kidney damage in long-term users. The published studies minimized these effects, called them rare side effects. The FDA's internal assessment said the risks were substantial, present in 15% of trial subjects. The agency approved the drug with restrictions, but those restrictions weren't enforced. Doctors prescribed it widely. Millions of patients took it daily. Many developed the exact problems the trials predicted. A third file documented a cancer drug trial. The drug showed promise in early testing, but full trials revealed serious problems. The drug extended life by weeks, not months. Quality of life declined significantly. Trial subjects experienced severe side effects. Many withdrew from the study. The published results focused on the life extension, glossed over the quality of life issues. The FDA reviewers expressed concern, questioned whether the drug should be approved. It was approved anyway. At a price of $12,000 per month, insurance companies paid. Patients suffered. Pharmaceutical company profited. The accidentally released files showed a pattern. Drug companies conducting trials, getting unfavorable results, publishing only favorable data. The FDA receiving complete data, knowing about problems, approving drugs anyway. Then thousands of patients experiencing the exact problems the trials predicted. When the FDA discovered the access error, they locked down the database immediately. They claimed the released files were preliminary drafts, not final assessments. But the files were marked as final reviews, signed by senior reviewers, dated after approval decisions. Medical researchers who downloaded the files were threatened with legal action. Some deleted their copies, others shared them anonymously. The documents eventually reached medical journals, congressional investigators, patient advocacy groups. Several drugs faced new scrutiny. Some had restrictions added. One was pulled from the market, but most remained available. The FDA insisted their approval process was sound. The accidentally released files proved otherwise. They showed an agency more concerned with pharmaceutical company profits than patient safety. An approval process corrupted by conflicts of interest and political pressure, and patients paying the price for drugs that should never have been approved. Number 9 involves the Department of Defense and a satellite imagery error. In 2020, the DoD was upgrading their satellite imagery systems, transitioning from old storage systems to new cloud infrastructure. During the migration, an entire archive of classified satellite photos became temporarily public. The images were uploaded to a server with incorrect security settings. For 5 days, high-resolution satellite imagery was accessible through standard mapping interfaces. Most people using mapping software never noticed. The images looked like normal satellite photos, but researchers studying specific locations recognized something unusual. Images with much higher resolution than commercially available, dates that didn't match public satellite passes. They realized they were seeing classified military satellite imagery. The photos revealed military installations that officially don't exist. One image showed a facility in the Nevada desert, not Area 51, a different location, massive underground construction, vehicle entrances large enough for aircraft, power infrastructure suggesting enormous energy consumption. The facility wasn't marked on any maps. Aviation charts showed empty desert, but the satellite image proved otherwise. A major installation, heavily guarded, completely secret. Another image captured a naval base in the Indian Ocean. On an island supposedly uninhabited, the image showed submarine pens, aircraft hangars, radar installations, clearly a forward operating base, strategic location for monitoring shipping lanes and military movements. But no official acknowledgement this base existed. A third image revealed construction in Antarctica, near the Transantarctic Mountains. Large buildings, multiple structures, access roads. The base appeared designed for permanent occupation, not a research station, something larger. The image showed features inconsistent with scientific research, more consistent with military installation. Other images documented surveillance of foreign countries. One showed a nuclear facility in Iran. Resolution high enough to identify individuals, count vehicles, read labels on equipment. The image proved American surveillance capabilities far exceeded public knowledge. Another captured Chinese military exercises, detail sufficient for tactical analysis. Ships identified by class, aircraft counted, formations documented, intelligence that should have required human assets or electronic surveillance. But it was all visible from space, with the right cameras. The images also revealed monitoring of American cities. One photo showed a protest in Washington, D.C., resolution high enough to identify faces. Another captured activity at a port in California. Every container visible and readable. These weren't old images. They were recent. Some dated within the previous month, proving ongoing surveillance, not just of foreign threats, of domestic activities. When the DoD discovered the breach, they removed access immediately. But mapping enthusiasts had downloaded thousands of images. The DoD claimed the images were low resolution and outdated, but metadata in the files contradicted that claim. High resolution, recent dates. Some images included classification markings visible in the corner, top secret, and higher. Military analysts who reviewed the downloaded images confirmed authenticity. The resolution, the angle, the sensor characteristics. Definitely classified military satellites. The accidentally released imagery revealed the true capabilities of American space surveillance. Satellites that could read license plates from orbit, track individuals across cities, monitor every military installation on Earth, and prove those capabilities were used domestically, not just for national security, for monitoring protests, tracking civilian activities. The images confirmed what privacy advocates warned about. Nowhere was private. Every outdoor space monitored, every gathering observed, and all because someone misconfigured a server during a routine system upgrade. Number 10 is the most recent, and perhaps most explosive. In June of 2023, the CDC was processing FOIA requests about pandemic response. Researchers wanted to see internal communications, decision-making processes, scientific justifications for policies. The CDC released thousands of emails. Most were heavily redacted, standard procedure. But someone made a critical error during the redaction process. They used image-based redactions, black boxes covering text in PDF files. But they forgot to flatten the documents. Anyone with basic PDF editing software could lift the redactions, reveal the hidden text underneath. Within hours, researchers discovered this. They began unredacting everything. What they found contradicted official pandemic narratives on multiple fronts. One email chain discussed mask effectiveness. This was from April 2020. The official guidance said masks were essential, highly effective at preventing transmission. But internal emails told a different story. CDC scientists expressing doubt about mask effectiveness for respiratory viruses, citing studies showing minimal benefit. One scientist wrote, "We're recommending masks more for psychological reasons than scientific ones." Another replied, "The public needs to feel like they're doing something, even if the actual benefit is marginal." The emails showed CDC officials knew masks provided minimal protection, but they recommended them anyway, to show decisive action, to make people feel safer. Another email chain discussed lockdown effectiveness. From June 2020, scientists debating whether lockdowns actually slowed transmission significantly. One email cited studies showing lockdowns delayed spread but didn't prevent it, just postponed the inevitable. Another discussed economic damage, predicting millions losing jobs, mental health crisis, increase in deaths from poverty and despair. The scientist questioned whether the trade-off was worth it. The response was stark. These decisions are being made above our level. Our job is to provide justification. A third email chain was most disturbing, discussing vaccine safety monitoring. This was from late 2021. CDC officials discussing adverse event reports, myocarditis cases in young males, blood clotting disorders, neurological symptoms. One scientist wanted to pause vaccination for certain age groups, pending further safety review. The response shut that down immediately. "We cannot pause now. The optics would be catastrophic." Another email stated, "We need to maintain public confidence even if we have concerns." The emails showed CDC officials prioritizing messaging over science. When data contradicted their recommendations, they suppressed it. When scientists expressed concerns, they were overruled. The accidentally unredacted emails also revealed coordination with pharmaceutical companies, company representatives in email chains, reviewing CDC messaging, suggesting changes. One email thread showed a pharmaceutical executive requesting changes to CDC guidance about booster shots. The CDC complied, revised their recommendation to match company preferences. Another showed coordination with social media companies, CDC officials flagging posts questioning vaccine safety, requesting removal or suppression. The social media companies complied, taking down posts, suspending accounts, even posts citing published scientific studies. If they contradicted CDC messaging, they were removed. The unredacted emails proved something many suspected but couldn't prove. Public health decisions driven by political and economic considerations, not science alone. Scientists silenced when their findings were inconvenient, data suppressed when it contradicted policy, and direct coordination between government agencies, pharmaceutical companies, and tech platforms to control information. When the CDC discovered the redaction error, they immediately released properly redacted versions. They claimed the unredacted emails were taken out of context. That internal debate was normal. Scientific disagreement was healthy. But the emails didn't show healthy debate. They showed scientists being overruled by administrators, evidence being dismissed, concerns being suppressed. The accidentally released emails damaged trust in public health institutions. They confirmed suspicions held by millions, that official guidance wasn't based purely on science, that political and economic factors drove decisions, that dissenting scientists were silenced. And the only reason anyone knows is because someone forgot to flatten a PDF file. 10 classified files, 10 accidental releases, 10 moments when the truth slipped through, a database uploaded to the wrong server, a spreadsheet attached to the wrong email, files with broken security settings, simple mistakes, catastrophic consequences. The MK Ultra documents showed programs continuing decades after they supposedly ended. The Pentagon spreadsheet proved the government investigates UFOs while publicly denying interest. The COINTELPRO files revealed surveillance programs that never actually stopped. Every case follows the same pattern. Someone makes an error. Classified information becomes public. Damage control begins immediately. Files removed. Incidents downplayed. Whistleblowers silenced. But the information survives. Copied by researchers. Archived by activists, analyzed by journalists. The evidence reveals systematic deception, government agencies lying to the public, corporations hiding safety problems, officials prioritizing politics over truth. These weren't conspiracy theories. These were documented facts, confirmed by government files, released accidentally, but revealing intentional deception. The pattern is clear. When evidence contradicts official narratives, it's classified. When research reveals uncomfortable truths, it's suppressed. When scientists disagree with policy, they're overruled. This happens across agencies, across decades, across administrations. It's not partisan. It's systemic. The files prove something important. The truth exists. It's documented. It's in government databases. Most of it stays hidden, protected by classification, buried in archives. But sometimes, someone makes a mistake, and for a brief window, the truth is accessible. These 10 cases represent what we know about how many other classified files exist, how many secrets remain buried, how many mistakes haven't been caught yet. The accidentally released documents changed nothing officially. No policies reversed, no officials held accountable. But they changed something crucial: public awareness. People now know what kind of information is being hidden, what kind of programs operate in secret, what kind of deception is standard procedure. The government counts on classification protecting secrets, on bureaucracy keeping truth buried. But bureaucracies make mistakes, and truth has a way of surfacing. Every file released accidentally is evidence, not just of what's hidden, but of why it's hidden. These programs and policies couldn't survive public scrutiny, so they operate in darkness. But darkness isn't permanent. Light finds cracks. Truth leaks through errors. The 10 cases examined here prove something vital. Government secrecy isn't absolute. Mistakes happen. Files escape classification. Evidence reaches the public. And once it's out, it can't be completely erased. Researchers archive it. Journalists investigate it. Citizens share it. The truth survives, even when powerful people want it buried. These accidentally released files are proof. Documented evidence from government sources. Not speculation. Not theory. Fact. The question isn't whether these secrets exist. The files prove they do. The question is, what else remains classified? What other programs operate in shadow? What truth might accidentally surface next? Stay curious. Question official narratives. Archive evidence when it appears. because the next mistake could reveal everything.